Greetings to all. Welcome to today's video lecture on the topic Instruments used in banking institutions. So, my dear students, as you all know, we are discussing on the fifth module of Banking Operations and Management, and under that, the topic of instruments which are used in banks and financial institutions. So, in our last class, we had discussed the definition of check, what is check, the origin, and various types of check. So, in this lecture, we will be discussing what is promissory note and bills of exchange. So, even these fall under the category of instruments in financial institutions and banking institutions. So let's move forward. So our first topic for this lecture is promissory note. So a promissory note is a legal instrument, more particularly used as a financial instrument, in which one party, that is the maker or the issuer, the one who issues the note, promises in writing to pay a determined sum of money to another party, that is known as payee, either at a fixed or determinable future time or on demand of the payee under specific terms if the promissory note is unconditional and readily stable. It is called a negotiable or a promissory note. So in this, if you see, it is an instrument in writing where one party, known as the issuer, issues this promissory note stating that a certain amount of sum has to be given to another person, known as the payee, at a predetermined or a fixed time in future. So this document is signed, containing a written promise to pay a stamped sum to a specified person or the bearer at a specific date or on demand. So on the demand, when demanded, the party has to pay the amount specified in the promissory note. So if you see the definition, according to section 4, a promissory note is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to bearer of the instrument. So from this definition, it is clear that it is a written document signed by the maker promising the other party to pay a certain amount in the future. So in this, who are the various parties of a promissory note? So there are two parties here, the maker or the drawer, that is the person who makes the note and promises to pay the sum of amount, and the payee, the person whom the amount is payable, who receives the amount. So in course of transfer of an promissory note, when a promissory note is transferred, the parties involved may be the endorser and the endorsee. Endorser is the one who endorses the note in favor of the other person, who receives the note in the favor of the other person. Endorsee is the one whose favor the note is negotiable or negotiated by the endorsement. So these are the essentials of a promissory note. These are the various things which should be present in one promissory note. What are those? It must be in written. The document or the note should be in written format. It must contain a promise or undertaking to pay. The promise to pay must be unconditional. It should not be conditional. It must be signed by the maker, the one who makes the promissory note. The maker must be a certain person. The payee also should be a certain person. The sum payable must be specified. It should be certain. The amount payable must be in legal tender money of India and other legal formalities. So if you see in this slide, I have mentioned few examples of promissory notes. So which has the sum mentioned, and in return when the amount has to be paid, the place, the date and the signature. So if you see, this is an example of a specimen copy of a promissory note. And in this, if you see, this is a promissory note in 1926 from the Imperial Bank of India of 20,000 rupees. Next, moving on, after your promissory note, we have bills of exchange. So what is a bill of exchange? So definition according to section 5 of the Negotiable Instrument Act defines a bill of exchange as: a bill of exchange is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker directing a certain person to pay certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or the bearer of the instrument. So if you see, this is similar to the promissory note. What is the difference? We will be seeing in future slides. So who are the parties of bills of exchange? So there are three parties, unlike your promissory note where there were two. In this, there are three parties which are involved in a bill of exchange: drawer, drawee and payee. Drawer is a person who gives the order to pay, or who makes the bill is called the drawer. He gives the order or who makes the bill. Drawee is the person who directs to pay, is called the drawee. He directs the drawer to pay to a certain person. And payee is the person to whom the payment has to be made. Certain other parties whom we have to keep in mind while discussing bills of exchange are: a holder, the drawer, or if the bill is endorsed to the payee, the endorsee who is in the possession of the bill. An acceptor is the one when the drawee accepts the bill in written words accepted and then signs it. So what are the essentials which has to be present in bills of exchange? Again, this must be in writing. It should be a written document. It must contain an order to pay. The order must be unconditional. It must be signed by the drawer. The drawee, drawer and payee must be a certain person. The amount should be specified. The bill must contain an order to pay only money, and it must be complying with all other formalities such as date, consideration, stamps, etc. So here if you see, this is the specimen of a bill of exchange. Next, moving on, we have check. So if you remember, we had already discussed check in detail, but I'll be just brushing up on this topic, not in depth. So as per the section 6, as substituted by the Negotiable Instrument Act 2002, defines a check as follows. A check is a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker and not expressed to the payable otherwise than on demand, and it includes the electronic image of a stamped check and a check in the electronic form. So here I have mentioned a specimen copy of a check. So what are the essentials which has to be included in a check? So a check must be dated. There should be a date mentioned in any check to be valid. A check should mention the amount in figures as well as in words. A check must be signed by the person, that is the drawer. A check must be drawn upon a specific bank, that is the drawee, and a check must have the name of the recipient, that is the payee to whom the check has to be paid. So if you see here, this is the specimen copy of a check. If you see the first one, it is a crossed check which has all the other details like the date, to whom it has to be paid, the account number, the amount in rupees as well as words, and the authorized person signature. So this was a quick definition of your instruments which are used commonly in the banks and financial institutions. So if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ping me anytime. Take care, be safe.